Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Alex, also known as Grand Pell on various chess websites, and I'm here to recap round two of the Sunday Marshall Beginner Chess Club tournament that was played back at the beginning of March. This is a while. It's been a while since my first recap, which happened just a few days after the tournament. This has been for a number of reasons. I had Easter break, spent a lot of that time with my family. There weren't a lot of great recording opportunities during that point. But also, I didn't have. The first video had really bad audio, and I wanted to go ahead and invest in a microphone so I would have better audio during my recordings. And so I have that now, and hopefully, there'll be more videos uploaded in the near future. I've played actually two other tournaments since this tournament's been played, and I do intend to recap those games as well. But for now, we're playing round two, or going over the game for round two, against Lucas W. And his rating, as you see on the screen, his official rating is 881. However, he is about the same rating as my first opponent in the first round on chess.com's rapid rating ladder itself, which is mid 1100s, 1166 at the time of this battle. Time of this game, excuse me. So, I'm playing with the white pieces, and over the last few weeks, my repertoire with the white pieces has been very scattered. I've been trying to learn various things in various different moves, starting openings, and I haven't really gotten into something that's comfortable yet. And I think that sort of shows itself in this game. Over the past few weeks, I had been learning the Catalan, and so I was going for that sort of setup, even though it wasn't a Catalan. It was a Slav defense, and we'll see that here. So we start with d4, d5, knight to f3. I've been experimenting with different moves on move 2, g3, knight f3, c4. All of them can get you to the Catalan, but I decided to go with knight f3 for this game, and he plays knight to f6, the symmetrical variation. I play c4. Now we're getting more of a normal queen's pawn opening, and he plays c6. This is the modern variation, or the modern line of the Slav defense. Instead of knight to c3, knight to f6, and then white can either play knight to f3, and we get whatever variation of the Slav, or white can play a weird move. Or you can play knight to f3 and queen to b3 also in this situation. That's also a very common line. Knight f3 and then queen b3 with the intent to play g3 and bishop g2. When I play this repertoire now with white, that's generally what I go for, but I didn't know that at the time. So I just go immediately for the move pawn to g3. And this allows black, to play the move bishop to g4, which I don't think is very good, because queen to b3 is now extremely strong, and this bishop on g4 just isn't very good. It usually goes to f5 instead. But I didn't know this at the time. I wasn't very comfortable with the opening. So I just go for my normal setup, because it can't be bad, and that's true, it's not bad. But there were ways to punish this opening early on that I didn't recognize. Bishop to g2. Opponent plays e6. Knight castle. Opponent plays bishop to d6. And I decided to go out on the offensive here with a move bishop to g5. This, as a concept, isn't bad in the slightest. Pitting this knight, of course, on f6. And it's all very dependent on what black does from here. But this setup is actually perfectly fine. It's not particularly Catalan-esque, but that makes sense, because we're not playing a Catalan, we're playing a Slav. We're playing a modern line of the Slav defense, we're not playing a Catalan. So bishop to g5 I thought was a fine move. I believe it's not the most accurate move in the world. I don't have the engine up right now. This is all self-analysis afterwards, and I looked at the engine a bit after the game itself, but this is a while after that. Bishop to g5 is an okay move. Castles and knight to e5, which is also actually a very good move. I'm threatening some things here that are very powerful. And after my opponent plays the move pawn to h6, I'm actually already winning. Fun fact. A simple two-move remove the defender tactic that if I saw it in Puzzle Rush, I would very, very easily find. Simply, bishop takes f6. If queen takes, knight takes g4, and I'm simply up a piece. And I didn't see it, which I was extremely frustrated with myself after the game at the time. I didn't enjoy analyzing this game afterwards, because missing a tactic like that, as relatively simple as it is at my strength not something that should be happening. Instead of taking and winning the game on the spot and making up a piece on the spot on move 9, I play the move bishop to f4, which again, in general, isn't a terrible move. Like it's an okay move, but I missed the piece hanging that was going on, and my opponent promptly hangs another piece with the move knight b to d7. Yeah, actually hangs another piece, and I sort of saw some of the ideas here, but I didn't actually see the way to punish it. The move simply is knight takes g4. If knight takes g4, bishop takes, and the knight has blocked the defense of the bishop from the queen. So I actually take it with tempo, rook to e8 is forced, and then I back up, and I'm up a full piece. If the crucial thing to see, which I think I missed at the time, was after knight takes g4, if this move you take with check, you see, black can't back up or anything, or do anything like that. You take with check, and then take on f4. And that's the critical move. I'm saying this, I shouldn't have missed it. It's not a very difficult tactic to spot. I'm just, for whatever reason, maybe it's because of lack of experience in the opening, and this isn't a sort of pattern that's that often in openings that I've played for most of my life. Up until about a month and a half ago, I was primarily an e4 player, and I've moved to d4 in various d4 openings. So maybe there's an argument that specific tactic isn't very commonly seen in games that I'd played before now, but that's not really an explanation. I should be seeing this. And I think it kind of shows the level of play I was kind of playing at throughout most of this game. So you'll see some issues later on as well. So I miss that. Instead of playing the move that wins the game on the spot, winning a piece, I instead play the move knight takes d7. The problem with this is that now the queen does defend the bishop, see? So I can't take. I mean, I do take, and it's a fine move, but I'm not winning anything from it. From here, I decide to go on with standard developing play. Queen to c2, this pawn on d4 isn't extremely under fire. It's hard to attack it, so queen to c2 is a very strong move. Defending the pawn on c4 at this point, preparing a move like knight to d2 or knight to c3, potentially, depending on the situation. e3, you play chess, right? It's sort of a closed Catalan, kind of, but not really. It's just a weird position that usually shouldn't happen because black hung two pieces, so. Queen to c2, it's an okay move. And rook a to c8, directly lining up this. And I do a similar move, rook to d1. These are just kind of standard developing moves in queen's pawn sort of positions. After rook f to e8, I decide to come up with my plan. I see a calculation that in my head, I think actually wins the game. So this is a little bit of an exercise, actually. The calculation that I saw in my head started with pawn to f3. After pawn to f3, you can play bishop to h5, but the thing is that if you play that, then the move e4 is potentially allowed. Although, obviously, there are ideas about this pin. That's something that has to always be thought about when I'm playing any move like f3 and preparing the move e4. It's why I can't play e4 right now. Actually, the pawn is supported enough. But this pin is an issue, and I think rook to d1, in hindsight, was a really bad move. But f3, bishop to f5 is definitely the more natural-looking move, however. Bishop to h5 is possible, but bishop to f5 is the more straightforward move. e4. de4, fe4, and the bishop goes back to g4. I calculated all of this. In my head, I saw the move e5, forking the queen and knight. After the queen moves, I take the knight, he takes my rook, I take the bishop, and I'm up two pieces for the rook. And at that point, I should be in a situation, usually two pieces for the rook is a good thing, and finding that way to gain material in that material imbalance, generally speaking, is good for the person with the two pieces. So I thought, at that point, I would be up two pieces for the rook, I'd be winning, or I would at least be better, and I'd have a chance to win the subsequent endgame. So a potential exercise, if you want to pause the video, is to see what I missed in my calculation. But I will go ahead and show what the issue was now. So I play the move pawn to f3. I didn't see any issues. Bishop to f5 happens, not bishop to h5, which I guess I could just play g4, looking at it now, but okay, anyway. e4, d, e, f, e, bishop to g4, e5. All these moves happened. I actually played bishop takes d1 immediately, which is another variation. Queen takes d1, and when I got to this position on the board, I saw the mistake. The issue, and the move that wins on the spot, actually the only move that wins on the spot, fun fact, queen to b4. What do you do? The threat, of course, is queen takes b2, winning the rook. And it's not simple to deal with at all. Actually, it's impossible to deal with. Black is winning. The computer's best suggestion, if I recall correctly, is playing, I think, b3, or some move like that, or knight c3 or queen c2, basically guarding the the queen takes b2 threat and just allowing the knight to move, and just being down a clean exchange and trying to survive down rook versus bishop. Evaluation, I think, was like minus 1.7 or something like that. Black is on the verge of winning, but white's only chance of holding is not allowing the move queen takes b2 with the power that comes if you play ef6. And at this point, the game is lost. Queen takes b2 happens, of course, and I thought at this point I was still holding after knight takes d2, knight to d2. You see, if you played, the issue, of course, is the fact that the rook is hanging. If a move like, if you could move your knight off the board, like off this way, like to here or to here, you kind of get my point. If the knight had more squares, then this wouldn't be an issue. I just move the knight, unobstruct the defense of the rook from the queen, and I'm okay. The problem is that there are only 3 squares the knight can go to. If I go to a3, I hang the knight. If I go to c3, I hang the knight. And if I go to d2, I actually also hang the knight, but it's a little bit more difficult to see. After queen takes d4, king to h1, either rook to d8, he played rook c to d8, and the game is over. I can't hold on to the knight. The rook can't defend, the bishop can't defend, and the knight is pinned. If I move the knight, there's no way for the knight to move and defend the queen, and I lose on the spot. And the game is over. I do play on for a little bit. I played the move bishop to f3 kind of... I mean, I obviously knew the fact that the knight on d2 was hanging, but there's actually nothing to do. So I played bishop to f3. But queen takes d2, rook takes d2, fg7, e5, and I played a couple of more moves, a4, e4, bishop to g2, e3, bishop to f3, e2, and when I realized that there was no way for me to survive in this position, I resigned, and my opponent won. There's not all that much interesting to learn from this game, unfortunately, but I still wanted to make a recap of it because I want to make a recap of all of my games. Interestingly, there is one possible defense here that almost looks like it holds. Rook to e1, rook d1, rook takes pawn takes equals queen, bishop takes d1, and if it was white to move here, white actually would almost be able to hold, say king g7. This is still losing, but it's reasonable to play on in this position after a move like, I don't know, bishop to g4 or something. I don't know. But the problem is that at the end, the rook fork comes, and now the game is completely over. So that was probably the best defense, but there was no point in playing on at that point. Time wasn't an issue. There was nothing. The pawn was going to promote. I played a few more moves after this point and ended up resigning just a few moves later. Again, not a very instructive loss. I think one thing that's interesting, and it's not, profound or anything, but a common issue I think a lot of players have when they play a lot of puzzles and tactics and those sort of things is finding those when there's no prompt. And I think that was one of the biggest issues I had in this game. After this, if I was given this position in like a puzzle rush or playing puzzles on chess.com, whatever, I don't think it'd be that hard for me to find the remove the defender tactic. I don't think it's that difficult to see. The problem is that you don't get this flashing warning of, hey, tactics here. And finding them actually in a game can be much more difficult. And that's just something I need to practice more. That's part of the reason that I need more experience. Need more tournament experience, playing more of these games that are higher stakes, if you want to put it that way. And at my level, I shouldn't miss that move. Truthfully, I shouldn't. And so I just need to get to the point where I don't. It's that simple. That'll be all for now. I hope you enjoyed. I will come back with the next video pretty soon, and I will see you then. Have a good day.